Hi, okay, so now Gary Melton and Raees Mohamed are going to discuss, oh, hold on. Sorry, I didn't open that. They are going to, what does 18 million YouTube defamation lawsuit, what does this mean for Candace Owens with Raees Mohamed? He's from Phoenix, Arizona. It's one of the reasons why you always see me wearing a hat. I'm from Arizona. I'm Marshadale. When I was growing up, apparently when I was very little, my favorite TV show was Gunsmoke with Marshall Dillon. I mean, I was really young. They said I'd come in and I'd say, I'm Marshadale, change my diapers. I have no recollection of that. But I do remember I loved Westerns. Oh, I mean, Westerns were the precursor to detective movies. But I always, yeah, on Sundays I would watch Westerns. They'd have Westerns on TV. So let's get into it with Raees Mohamed. Oh, let me put my stereo speaker on.
Have a good one. See you later.
Raees, what's happening, man?
Hey, guys. Sorry I'm late, but
That's okay.
Justice requires patience.
Hey. No worries, man. So
I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for waiting on me. It's Phoenix traffic can be unpredictable. Ladies and gents, do not plan to be on a podcast at peak of traffic when you are across the city. That's just the lesson I've learned. I appreciate you guys.
No, we appreciate you, man.
Oh, I couldn't imagine any place, even in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, no. Phoenix, too many people, and when we were growing up, no, we didn't like going to Phoenix because it was too hot and humid. This is Tucson. Yeah, because Phoenix is humid compared to Tucson. And then you have the smog in there. Oh, no, I never really liked Phoenix.
And you're worth waiting on. It actually gave us a chance to kind of brief the case before we get to the legal side of it. So now everybody's kind of familiar with what actually happened with this young lady. She left a party. She ended up driving off into the water. She was missing for a really long time. I actually have the court documents. But before we do that, for people that missed our last one or doesn't know who you are, go ahead and just introduce yourself and we'll take it from there.
Yes, so I am a co-founding partner of R.M. Warner Law. We are an internet and corporate law firm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I happen to be wearing the shirt. This was not planned, so don't hate me for this, but that's the firm name. It's the logo. So yeah, I've been doing defamation law for 16 years, and my focus is on internet defamation, which is a different animal than your standard defamation. And it's because the forensics are more complicated. You have much more complicated fact scenarios. You have to deal with the viral nature of a false campaign. And look, it's a First Amendment practice just as much as it is a defamation practice. So we're defending people who are speakers of the truth, content creators like yourself, Gary, and people in that industry. We represent everyone from, the kid in his parents' room.
Wait a second. This is a lawyer who's coming on and say distributor of the truth like you, Gary. I find that highly irresponsible of this man, because he really should read my blog on about Amal Clooney and my email to Amal Clooney and my beef with all of the Middle Eastern women. This is the Arabs and the or the Muslims and the Hindu women coming to the United States and promoting the propaganda of men in the Middle East are just horrible barbarians. They're savages, and thank you so much welcoming us with open arms into the West, where you're civilized and women have rights. And they're given book deals, movie deals, and fraudulent nonprofits to promote their propaganda. Now, I have been explaining to the Muslim and Hindu men for a long time the chaos that their women are promoting here in the U.S. with their greed and quite frankly, treasonous propaganda. I mean, look what's going on in Lebanon. If Amal Clooney and her family was a little bit more concerned about their home country instead of constantly cashing in, her sister is just as bad as her, and having it all, having it all feminist. I mean, I want to make an example out of that woman. Now, why can I not find lawyers to assist me, even again amongst the Muslim or Indian here in the United States? No, because that would rock the boat, and they wouldn't be able to cash in to the demise of the West. So I hope Raees Mohamed listens to what I'm saying and takes that into account, because I mean, this gets into, Vivi Sabah, my mother. I talked about her in the last one. She's a Arizona University anthropologist. She was a good friend of my mother's, who canceled my mother when they lost their farm to an Edwin Edwards scheme, and had the FBI coming after them, and they had to run and go into hiding. Now, my mother played that, and yeah, there's a lot of questions I have about that. But I have standing in cause as much in Louisiana as I do in Arizona. We left in the 70s, but I want a lot of explanations from all the people that I grew up with. I mean, this is supposed to be a democracy. I'm fighting to implement the Constitution here in the United States as much as in Europe, throughout Europe. So, Raees Mohamed, okay, I understand we're in different races. You're like with a cart and buggy, and I'm like with a spaceship. I'm working at the constitutional level and the international human rights level, which is above these local courts, which is what he's working in. I mean, he's even if it's federal court, that I don't really get into, or I don't care about, because what I care about is the jurisdiction. Now, Arizona ruling elite have a responsibility. Now, Gonzalez Linehan versus USA, the American government said that they don't have control over their states. So this gets into sovereignty rights, of the United States plus the different states. But whatever way you slice it, in a democracy, now you can vote. Now, we all know that your elected officials are being bought, but you should be complaining and doing something about that problem instead of just saying, "Oh well, that it's their fault." No, it's your fault. That's what a democracy is supposed to be about. And the way that everybody has been flocking to Arizona and cashing in on the most beautiful deserts we have and destroying the state and its resources really pissed me off. I've been here in Washington. If everyone I knew was getting up the ass of every single one of their congressional members, I produced the letters that you need, the protocol, the structure that we need in order to challenge, the State Department. We got 10 million Americans living abroad. Their State Department is not doing its job. The consulates, okay, let's do something about it. I don't want to discuss this with anybody. The consulates have the responsibility at the local level, then with the Americans living in, say, Madrid, instead of the American Women's Club of Madrid sitting on their asses and having parties. Get up the asses of everybody. Same with Nicole King in Marbella. No, Marbella now. She's too busy cashing in on all of that. All of the Brits and the Germans, I mean, they retire down there just like the Americans retire in Florida and Arizona, New Mexico, etc. I mean, this thing that the Americans just think that they're here to cash in and have no responsibility as citizens. Go to the polls and vote. Go to the polls and vote. I'm like, stop that bullshit. Go to the polls and vote, and then go to the shopping mall and spend money and enrich the corporations who control your politicians in Washington. I mean, if I had the backing of everybody I knew, Washington would be cleaned up faster than you could even say boo.
A microphone all the way to A-list celebrities and people who are on the cover of magazines. And I love what I do. I picked it. It didn't pick me. We practice in all 50 states, even though I'm licensed in Arizona, because we get admitted as necessary and partner with local attorneys. So I've had a chance to...
You practice in all 50 states. Well, that's a good thing to know. Thank you very much for that information. Because, yeah, that gives me jurisdiction with y'all everywhere.
Litigate across the country and get a flavor for different jurisdictions and kind of see what judges and lawyers are like around the country on this complex issue of defamation. And I love what I do. I wouldn't do anything else.
Well, since you...
Yeah, well, this is really good because now we get a feeling of what all of the lawyers and the idea of what it is in the United States. Let's see how it stands up against human rights conventions and against scrutiny under the U.S. Constitution. And I'm not talking about a Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can go and screw itself. That thing has been so politicized, it's useless. And actually, it's counterproductive.
That you're in Phoenix, I think it's fair to go ahead and address what will come up. Are you in any way affiliated, talking to, or any other way affiliated in any way with TPUSA or any affiliate of them?
Other than the $1 million check they sent me? No, I'm kidding. That's no, 100% not. 100%
that was
not affiliated
that joke,
with TPUSA.
buddy.
Not at all.
And just so you know, too, I did get a email today from Candace's lawyer. I have a preservation order, which
beautiful.
We may dive into that. I don't even know where she's going with that. I mean, obviously, I got nothing to hide. She can subpoena my phone and have at it. I don't know how that's going to protect her from the claims that she made against Brian Harpole, but it is what it is. I do want to go ahead and knock out this question because this has been brought up a lot, and I think I know the answer to, but we'll let the professional answer it. The idea of a class action lawsuit against Candace has come up a lot for defamation. Is that something that is a thing? I've never heard of a class action defamation. And if what is a thing, like what would be the parameters that would justify such a lawsuit?
A class action defamation case. That's an interesting question because I can't think of a fact pattern off the top of my head that would warrant 100 class or less even of plaintiffs that are similarly situated that were all defamed, right? Because remember, for a defamation case, the core of it is reputational harm. So I suppose if you could have a large
this is an interesting thing. Yeah, let's listen.
Swath of plaintiffs that were all similarly harmed by a publisher, maybe on a news channel or by a YouTuber, but that's a lot of people. And then you have questions about how everyone's reputations were similarly harmed, right? So when you think of class action, you think of usually mass torts, these pharmaceutical company type lawsuits. And that's because everybody generally is treated the same because their damages are similar. The defendant is the same, the target's the same, and the result is the same. And so there's actually some rigid requirements to develop a class. So I don't think so. I don't see what now.
Well, here I'll give you the hypothetical that's been presented to me multiple times, and that is, for instance, she said all of these lieutenant colonels and colonels were in this building plotting this assassination against Charlie Kirk. That's kind of where I think a lot of this comes. And then the other thing, whether it's me and other multiple people that she's kind of went after, whether that even reaches a level of defamation is kind of another thing altogether. But that's kind of what she's talking about. And then I've also heard people say, well, why does it...
Wait a second. I'd love a class action on this. The generals are going to have to present themselves. Okay? Who is she claiming to have defamed? Who was at the meeting? That's what we all want to know. So in order to claim that they've been defamed, they have to expose who they are. Okay, at least that's what I understand that he's saying here. I'm like, wait a second, we're wondering who they are. So if they claim that they're defamed, they're going to have to expose who they are.
The military sue Candace. I've never heard of the government suing someone for defamation, but I could be wrong. I don't know how all that works. So that's where people's heads are at. Like, hey, she said these people were in this building that are plotting this murder against Charlie Kirk.
Let me say this.
Yeah, the military suing Candace for defamation or anybody else, I don't think that they go down that road. I really don't.
You can have a non-class multi-plaintiff lawsuit. I've done that before. You know, you can have 5, you can have 10 plaintiffs, you can have 20 plaintiffs. I've had a case where as many as nearly 30 plaintiffs. It was a non-class. So people often mistake class actions with multi-plaintiff or even mass tort. So the answer to the question is many people can sue if you have the same claim against the same person. So in the event that, let's say hypothetically, Candace Owens defamed, 30 people, all 30 of them could bring claims in the same lawsuit, or they could bring them separately, in which case the claims would probably get consolidated into a single case. So
makes sense. Perfect.
On the government question,
well, the thing is how this stands. Candace could countersue Gary, Melton, and everybody he brings on. Candace and Mitch could countersue them for defamation. There's a better case there than the one Harpole has presented, because Candace has been careful. Blake Bednar hasn't been careful, and Gary Melton, not in the least.
Governments don't typically...
He's so sure. He's backed by the military-industrial complex, and he's untouchable.
Sue people unless it's to recover their own money. They're not going to sue a private actor for damages. They have better things to do, like run a country. But what they would probably be inclined to do, individuals can certainly bring claims in their individual capacity. We've seen that before, right? We've seen, we've seen many examples of politicians, even presidents, bring lawsuits or be sued. But the government as an entity doesn't necessarily have to file suit. So if people are asking about, well, what about the individuals that Candace named? If it's false, if it's defamatory, and there's injury to reputation, they could certainly bring a lawsuit separately. Yeah. Well,
and the other thing too is I having talked with you and other lawyers at this point, I realize like there's some pretty high bars to reach the point of defamation. And I think like simple slander, people think, oh, well, you said this thing about me, it's not true. I can sue you because it's not true. It's a little bit more complicated than that, right?
It's way more complicated than that. And again, I am a First Amendment lawyer as much as I am a keep people honest, don't defame people lawyer. Not everything is a tort. Not every statement causes reputational harm. Hurt feelings are not a basis to sue someone for defamation. And to the extent we get into the case we're all really here for with this YouTuber, you need to really show reputational harm. That's the crux of a defamation case. Just because you didn't like what somebody said, somebody calls you an idiot or a moron or a piece of shit in more colorful language, you can't sue for defamation over those things. It's a false statement of fact that causes reputational harm, that identifies a specific person or is specific enough that reasonable minds can put together the puzzle of who we're talking about. So even if you don't name a name, sometimes people think, well, if I say a false statement of fact and I harm someone's reputation, if I don't name drop, as they say, I could skirt past this. But they use all the other identifiers.
Candace has been very, very careful. Very, very, very careful. I've listened to all of her podcasts since the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I've even listened to her book clubs. I'm interested in those. I don't agree with completely. I mean, how shall I explain it? Her stuff on the Freemasons is very interesting and enlightening. And I mean, I don't disregard it. However, she's false. She should look at the Euclid Hillsdale course on logic. All Freemasons are not Illuminati. Now, all Illuminati may be Freemasons. I'm not positive about that. I don't think so. But definitely all Freemasons are not Illuminati. And that's the assumption that she's, I mean, it's made in the book that she's following this book, but she is going with that assumption. And I'm demonstrating that she's incorrect. However, like, suing her? Well, no, it gets under freedom of speech. And I have my freedom of speech to, I mean, okay, she wants to cancel me. She doesn't want to listen to it. Okay, fine. I have my, right to sit there and say, well, you're wrong, even if when nobody wants to listen to it. Now, if Candace's actions of ignoring me and ignoring the research that I've been doing and the facts and evidence that I'm presenting to her about the problems in the courts causes harm to somebody else, well, we do have foundation for a lawsuit. And this gets into the Sandy Hook stuff, but all of the podcasters are on thin ice on that shit. All these people think that they are sitting pretty. They're sitting pretty in the devil's playground.
Fires. And if reasonable people can conclude who you're talking about, you're not saved from liability.
Gotcha. So I started going through this lawsuit earlier. I don't know if there's a particular spot that you would like to start in. Obviously, I think giving everybody the framework at the beginning of this is pretty good. But I highlighted it just, and again, I think I got about 12, 15 pages into this. But Kylie Rodney disappeared on August 6, 2022. Some of the big things here: Ryan Upchurch began posting about Kylie Rodney on YouTube on August 13, 2022. At this time, the whereabouts of Kylie Rodney were unknown. In these videos, Upchurch offered outlandish theories of the truth of what happened to Kylie Rodney. Upchurch initially theorized that a person named Ronnie, who was a caller to a YouTube show hosted by YouTube, whatever this is, Iced Mel, was a red herring and a made-up character. In the comment reply to his video, Red Flag Ronnie 2, YouTuber user posted, "Dude, be careful. You're going to get sued for slander, for real." Upchurch replied, "They can slander these nuts." I'm sure that went over well with the jury.
Yeah, the these nuts response tells you everything you need to know.
In a video posted on August 20th, Upchurch falsely claimed that the various other YouTube crime would-be sleuths, including the YouTube personalities, whatever this is, and Ice Mel, were responsible for or somehow involved in the death of Kylie Rodney. In the video titled "Exactly What I Think Happened to Kylie Rodney," Upchurch suggested that this person were responsible for the disappearance of Kylie Rodney, stating, "If you look at the timeline of Kylie being there, Ronnie's seeing that her and this person having a video of the party, isn't it possible that they took her, which is why no kids seen this? And if that's what happened, that would explain what Ishmael is acting crazy and being like, look, everyone, Ronnie's real." So here we have a classic example of like there being an information gap, and we're just filling it in with speculation. But it's amazing how quickly that'll be kind of regurgitated as fact. You know what I mean? And we've seen that definitely with the Candace Owens case.
Can I make a kind of an opening statement just about,
Absolutely.
Let me say this. This case is a warning shot for true crime content creators and anyone that's covering news, period. So anybody who's listening or in the future, when you watch the clips of this, if you are in the true crime or recap game, you have to study this case. And here's why. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to criticize an investigation. You're allowed to criticize the federal government, the state government, the police. You can even speculate to a degree, okay? But when you tell millions of people that a dead teenager and her grieving family are fake, or that the family is running a GoFundMe scam, and this is a family who just lost a daughter who drowned, which drowning is one of the worst ways to go.
No.
When you say things that are a false statement of effect, you've crossed into accusations. You now have liability.
Yes, okay. However, playing the devil's advocate here, I do agree with him on that. However, there are so many scammers out there, and there's no oversight or investigation. The government is out to lunch. They're not doing their jobs in any of the arenas. So there is so much bullshit and scammers and fake GoFundMe. I mean, I am very, very careful. I mean, I don't have any money to give to anybody, but I do look into those things, and I am not for this GoFundMe stuff. Anytime, somebody died, for burial service, can you contribute? I'm like, why? Every time you turn around, everybody, oh, give us money for this, give us money for that, give us money for this, give us money for that. It is out of control. So at the same time, you're in an arena where the government has allowed chaos to reign in this arena, that everybody jumps to the conclusion that it's just another con artist trying to get some money.
I'll be the first one to support a content creator. Like I said, I represent many who have opinions, strong ones, opinions that you may not agree with, I may not agree with, but I support the right to have an opinion. When you make factual accusations, just remember that a jury is going to potentially have a chance to decide if you conveyed a false statement of fact that's worthy of getting smacked with the verdict on. And in this case, Gary, they spoke so loudly on this. And for people who don't practice law, who aren't in courtrooms, who don't analyze cases, and I'm sorry I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm giving you a...
Oh, it's great, actually.
For people who don't know and just see the damages figure, let me just say this. A Tennessee jury made a decision that what Ryan Upchurch said was not only defamation, but was extremely, extremely injurious. It was harmful. It was emotionally distressing. It was reckless, even. And there were many counts other than defamation. I don't even think the defamation claim was the best one. I actually think the emotional distress claim was the better claim in this case. We can talk about that. But the jury said $17.5 million in compensatory damages. What that means is to make you whole, we are going to pay you this much money. This is how much we think you deserve to be compensated. That's not to punish Ryan Upchurch. That's to say this is how much you've demonstrated you should be entitled to be compensated. Then the jury came back and says when it went into, so there was a, the damages phase is typically split into two phases. The case moved into punitive damages, and the jury said, guess what, dude? We don't like you. And that's when they delivered $500,000 in punitive damages. Punitive damages are hard to get. I've gotten punitive damages before. And even in a bench trial where a judge knows when somebody's dicking around and shouldn't be, the jury didn't like this guy. And $500,000 is, while it's not a huge punitive award, $18 million is. So they sent a massive message here. So what I want listeners and people watching this, even if you're not a practitioner, to understand is this is not a normal jury verdict. And plaintiffs' lawyers, hats off to, I think it's Chris Smith, who is trial counsel for a plaintiff. They do personal injury work. Great trial lawyers. He did a marvelous job. And so I just want to frame it that way. And Gary, I feel like you and I sort of predicted the future a little bit. Here's why I'm saying this. Last time I was on, how long ago was that? Was that last week?
A week and a half ago, something like that.
I feel like it's just yesterday.
Yep.
Last time I was on, I made an analogy to Alex Jones's case. You remember that? The Candace Owens?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The judge in this case, in the Upchurch case, made the same analogy in his orders during the final days of the jury trial. Why I'm saying that is because the judge and certainly the jury understood that conspiracy has a limitation, bro. False accusations are not the same as a general opinion on a conspiracy. And you're entitled to say how you think she died, the girl, Kylie Rodney. But what Alex Jones, and for those who know, Alex Jones got hit with a massive judgment, right?
1.6 billion.
Jury came back and said, we don't like that you said Sandy Hook was fake. It was a psyop. It was a false flag operation, that these families were just playing along and that nobody really lost their lives. And I mean, again, you don't F around with death. That's another strong message. When you're talking about lives, again, very good analogy to Candace Owens, right? And what's being said. You don't F around with how people die and personal accusations that somebody was involved with death. That's up there. That's aside from accusing someone of murder, right? The loss of life always
That's what's going on here, buddy. It's not following this case. So what's going on?
Carries a heavy burden, and juries. Just imagine you're sitting there. Have you ever served on a jury before?
I haven't. I'm in the middle of a jury duty, whatever. Like I'm on call right now. It's funny, for the first time ever.
So, and I'm curious if your watchers, your listeners in the chat.
He's on call for jury duty? Let's get a fact check on that one. What happened with me was, I got a letter, and I mean, this may differ. This was DC, so it may be different in different places. I've only once been called for jury duty. One of the things is I lived abroad for 20 years, so I don't know if they would have called me. But also, I haven't really stayed in places. In DC, when I was a student, I kind of changed departments, and here I've had to move 9 times because there's no rule of law. And this gets into, I'm very interested in this whole defamation that he's pulling out here, because this, huh, this goes back again. I did contact, because the defamation in my case is my ex-husband saying that I was a drug addict and alcoholic since the time I was 14 years old, and had been, and he had to put up with this, drunk his entire life. I mean, it's so far ludicrous. But my lawyers buried me and everything. So there is, in the divorce, there is this jurisprudence that claims that I was a juvenile delinquent and went to reform school and everything. My reform school is Foxcroft, cost $70,000 a year. That's all of the robber baron heiresses who went there. And then Cobham Hall is all of the British aristocracy and jet setting. I mean, Portugal, it's the family who owns Taylor's Port and Wine. In India, it's Vanita Gupta, or married name is Gupta. That's the Gupta family, her husband, and they do like weapons and airplanes. And so they're the military industrial complex. Let's see, Cobham, there's a whole slew of people from Cobham as well. One of the wealthiest, is she Angola? I think she's like one of the, wealthiest billionaires, but now all of her billions is being withheld, and I think she's escaped to maybe Saudi Arabia. She's on the Interpol watch list or something. These are the successful alumni of Cobham Hall. So anyway, I laugh at the jurisprudence. However, and I'm like, excuse me, no, I'm going to go after them of a principle. This is defamation. I mean, just because it's my husband, I'm sorry, that doesn't make it okay. And for example, the neighbors, the husband and wife who signed those letters, this is perjury. I said at the beginning to the lawyer, one of the lawyers, Spanish lawyers, bigwig, I said, this is perjury. This is falsification of documents. She said, well, I was stupid and naive. I was the stupid one, and that she was going to show who was boss, because I was like, this is perjury. She's like, everybody does it. It's expected. And I'm the stupid one. Yeah. So this, again, defamation, what really the harm has done is with the defamation with my children and my sons, and that they've been alienated from me for 18 years and been made to believe all of these lies. Now, within this cover-up, there's the McCain, Cindy, and the McCain camp, the McCain and the Republican Party of Arizona. This gets into Mike Helen, friend of my mother's. I'm looking for a job in DC. That got an email of 2011 to Mike Helen. I'm like, excuse me, I've got this great resume. Nobody will even give me a minimum wage job in DC, and you've got Meghan McCain on The View propagating all of these lies and misinformation and trying to destroy me at the same time. So yeah, this gets in, and this is the reason that Trump is in power now. If John McCain hadn't been sitting on this all of these years, and Bennett Johnston from Louisiana, who I worked for from 81 to 85, and his son hadn't been sitting on all of this. I mean, this defamation, nobody wants to get involved in any unpleasantness. Well, this defamation that my husband and other people were involved in Spain has had a serious detrimental effect to me and my children and to millions of women and children across the globe who are harmed by the divorce courts and the family law courts. Ingrid Betancourt, oh, that little girl, she really keeps on digging the hole deeper and deeper for everyone. There's a jurisprudence in the American courts that awarded her and her son $36 million of the pain and suffering of being separated from his mother when he was 15 years old. I'm like, well, Ingrid, you did this. You know very well my sons, that's the age that my sons were separated from me. You're not understanding how this is going to be, not only am I going to ruin you, I mean, what do you think? All of you and your sister's money, you're going to lose your French nationalities. One of her son, Lorenzo, that's why there's jurisprudence in the American courts, because he was born in the United States, so he had American nationality. They're going to lose all of it. Y'all are going to have to go back to Colombia, Medellin, and they're not going to be too happy to see y'all. You want to be in the limelight with the Sarkozys over in France? Well, along with Anne St. Clair, well, it's time to pay the piper. See, these people, Raees and Gary and stuff, they're working at a total different level. They want to play, they want to become the rich and famous, but they don't understand the Machiavellian games that are being played. And I keep on telling people, you do not come and crapshoot at a high stakes poker game. All of the rich and famous have put everything on the line. The oligarchs, the celebrities in Hollywood, the politicians in Washington, and all of the assholes in New York City. They've all put it on the line because the bottom line is they want to continue a concentration of wealth and power into the urban centers, produce an Orwellian future, and oppress the masses. I mean, you talk about your stolen valor. The revolution was not fought so that we could install a new aristocracy in the United States. Good or bad, they were less than perfect, the founding fathers, but the principles that they fought and died for are in the US Constitution. And all of the military people, all of the lawyers who are colluding in the destruction of that Constitution are going to have to answer. Either me or an angry mob after the bloodshed. Idiots.
How many of them have served on a jury trial before? So here's my point. You have people who are from every cross-section of society who've already been scrutinized to some degree by both sides of the lawyers. They're sitting down and they're listening to a story. They have to leave their job, leave their home. They have to come check in early. They have to miss lunch or eat a very nasty lunch.
Sorry, I started on all of that because I was on jury duty. I just had to go the one day, sat around, and they said, okay, now you go. You leave. You weren't on call at home. You had to show up because if you were selected, oh, well, was he selected then already? Because if you were selected, maybe you'd have to, but then I don't know if they sequester everybody. I don't think they sequester everybody and put them in a hotel on everything. Again, I was sitting there all day long, waiting. Then they said, everybody can go home. You're not being called. I'm like, okay. I was waiting in there going, oh, I can't wait to go in there and say, I don't think you want to choose me. I've been investigating courts for 8 years now. And I'm going to the international court, so I really don't think you want me on your jury. I think everybody in the courtroom would have said, yeah, this one's excused. I have that one. I mean, I
don't have access to all the
I had to be transparent. I was kind of curious, but I'm working minimum wage, and if I don't show up for work, they don't pay me, so I couldn't take time off.
in water that you can
I know they do pay you, but it wasn't going to be,
have at home. They're sitting, they're listening to a story. And the story goes, but again, by the time it gets to trial, it's very different than the complaint we read, right? You have a lot of discovery, you have testimony, you have documents, depositions, videos. And they're listening and they're saying, we're here to decide if this guy Ryan Upchurch is allowed to say that the family of Kylie Rodney made this all up. And this is in the town that she died in. What an insane thing to think that you can go to trial and win on. Now, that's my personal perspective, okay? Now, there's another view, which is, well, Raees, that's the whole point of being a YouTuber. I should be able to say outlandish and crazy things. And I'm going to say the law doesn't support that.
no.
The law says there are limitations to crazy things that you can say on YouTube. And here is a perfect example of that.
And Gary should take note here because he's passed the line many a times, but Candace hasn't.
And the fact that the Alex Jones case is how we got to this.
And see, Raees Mohamed, he's very irresponsible for coming on here. I'm sure Gary, gave him a real nice speech and everything. He's very irresponsible. And all of the lawyers who are coming on and serving as experts for these podcasters without investigating who the podcaster they're talking about or any of the charges. For example, I don't think Raees understands that Gary is looking at serious, Candace could sue him for defamation. And regardless of what Candace does, I'm going to want some answers from this guy. Out of principle. I'm going to be making examples of everybody here. Because, this started, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who, this was just after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And he's on a podium and he says, it's all of the press who's radicalizing everybody. Yeah, just like with Hitler, the propaganda, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose father was a Nazi, don't just sit up on a podium and bitch. This guy was governor of California. Nobody understands anything about governing. Because just because you leave office doesn't mean that you have no more responsibilities. This whole election process was because the hereditary based ones were not working out. But you're a former governor, that still gives you some power and prestige, even if you're no longer in office. In fact, it can give you more power and prestige that you're not in office. And particularly, you're married to a Kennedy. Well, you were married and divorced to Kennedy, Kennedy Shriver. But this guy, he really should have done his homework before going on podcasts.
Point. The fact that the Alex Jones verdict was referenced here tells you what people thought. They thought this was a gigantic crock of shit that did not deserve protection. They did not think that this guy had any right to say any of the gross things that he ultimately said about Kylie Rodney's family. And some people don't know. I know you have the complaint pulled up there, but so Daniel Rodney, Kylie's father, plaintiff 1. Plaintiff 2, correct me if I'm wrong, is David Robertson, who is her grandfather. Let's scroll up.
Yep.
The plaintiff. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep, right there, plaintiff.
David
Yep.
Robertson and Daniel Rodney. Yep.
Yep, perfect. So the jury said, now I'm going backwards from damages. The jury said, you know what? Dad should get $6.5 million for reputational harm and emotional distress. And I didn't have a chance to. I'm sure we could get the verdict forms and search online, generally public, to see what boxes the jury checked for, damages. They gave $11 million to David Robertson, her grandfather, interestingly enough. So he got more damages than the dad. And what that tells us is the jury was extremely sympathetic to the emotions of the family. That's what it tells us. Because generally, granddad, I don't know how old David Robertson was, but when you're like 80 years old, unless you're the CEO of a publicly traded company, you're...
Yeah, well, the emotions of Tyler Robinson's family are standing by that he didn't do it. Now, if Tyler Robinson is being railroaded and it ends up that he's exonerated, either in this trial or in an appeal, Gary Melton can be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. And all of the ones that, Megyn Kelly, Tyler Robinson did it right from this was coming out of the gates. Right after Charlie Kirk was shot. She took the lead. Fastest racehorse took the lead. It's not always the one who takes the lead at the beginning who wins. Okay? Out of the gate, boom. Tyler Robinson did it. I want the death penalty. I won't even be there when he's killed. I'm like, well, Megyn Kelly, maybe we could arrange for you to inject the lethal injection into his veins. Maybe that would make you happy. You call yourself a Christian? Yeah, you're Catholic.
Your reputation, if you will, is not generally worth, because what's your reputational loss worth? They're kind of looking at end of life. I hate to say it that way, but that's how juries think and they can be told. So bottom line is, this case is an amazing case for all content creators to learn from. This is, again, free advice here for everybody who's in the content game. Look at what is happening and learn from it. There is no free pass to say, in my opinion, this is what happened, because you're stating facts.
Well, and look, this just used to be a societal norm that we didn't accuse people without extreme amount of evidence, right? Yeah. And now accusations being framed as questions are not only encouraged by
Tyler Robinson, the flimsy evidence they got against him, and all of a sudden everybody wants him on death row.
Our current society, but they're incentivized, they're monetized, and people love it. People are digging it. And that used to be like, again, I've told the story 100 times. I remember growing up and people talking about this in my midst in the 80s and 90s, like, it's like, look, I'm not going to sit here and entertain an accusation without, proof or evidence. And now that's what we see. Going back, I want to clarify a couple of statements that you made. You said a statement of fact.
He's not going to entertain an accusation without facts and evidence. What is he doing with Tyler Robinson?
It comes to an accusation. Does that include clear innuendos? Does that include making statements and then throwing a question mark on the end of it? How do you clarify that? And again, this is something that obviously Candace Owens does a lot. She has everything that she's said. It's innuendo, it's insinuation. But the conclusion that she wants her viewers to come to, you can tell by the chat. And we even saw in that lawsuit where, they're actually posting comments that make that very clear. How do you differentiate that? Or is there a differentiation between those two things?
There is. So it all comes down to what a reasonable listener would think. And the reasonable listener standard includes the context, okay? Where the statement's being made. It's being made online on a podcast. Who is making the statement? A political commentator who has millions of followers, who's taken seriously. Like, Candace Owens is not a host of SNL, right? We all agree, whether you like her or not. You don't have to agree with her to agree with that. What was her former job? What was her former and current credibility? These are all things that get framed into the reasonable listener or viewer's perspective. That's what courts are going to look at. That's what gets argued in motions when you move to dismiss. And after discovery, we get to piece this puzzle together of, hey, you know what? A reasonable listener is going to actually believe this because the person is framing it, even though they're leaving a question mark. We're reading it as a period or an exclamation point. The question mark, the hypothetical question mark, doesn't mean question mark in today's world. You can't lead people down the path of saying a false statement of fact with a question mark. That is ultimately for a jury to decide how it's framed and whether it conveys the meaning that was intended. So plaintiffs will argue, like Brian Harpole, let's just get into it. He's going to argue, you know what? I know Candace Owens is going to argue that she didn't, when she said, is Brian Harpole responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk? Because isn't it possible that he was there on the day and that he was seen by this guy Snow? That's a question.
But that's not a question that she asked. Not to my recollection, ever.
A reasonable reader or listener hears that is what makes all the difference in the world.
And so thrown in the context of demanding an alibi from him to prove his innocence, I think that gets a little wild. The other question I had for you.
The question is, the only thing that's on the table is Mitch Snow claims that he saw Brian Harpole. Okay, I don't want to, because he saw Erica Kirk at the hotel, but it was it was Brian Harpole at the at Fort Huachuca. So he's claiming, I saw Brian Harpole at Fort Huachuca on such and such a date. Okay. Candace Owens has offered up this information. She's vetted Mitch Snow. I vetted Mitch Snow. You can see my videos on that. I debunked all of the personal attacks and accusations that Gary Melton made against Mitch Snow. That was during the Christmas. My videos are during Christmas. Gary had made it the attacks just before and continued on. So, you know, that's what has been, that's all that Candace has said. Here's Mitch Snow. I have a witness who says he saw him at Fort Huachuca on such and such a date. Harpole presented some a printout of airplane reservations that he had for that day as proof that he wasn't there. It's not proof. Ask anybody who does an expense account. Will you accept somebody here? I went to New York for the day. I flew there or for the weekend. Excuse me, you wouldn't go for the weekend, for business. I went there on Monday, I had to sleep over, and I came back on Tuesday. Okay, I need your boarding pass, not a reservation. You could have made a reservation, said you were going to New York, said you were, you know, you've got a hotel, flight reservation, a hotel reservation, and another returning flight reservation. That's not proof. You need to give me the receipt, the boarding pass, and the hotel, you know, the bill or whatever that you paid. You submit your, you know, if you put it on a credit card, here it is. I mean, if you have a corporate credit card, you don't have to do the expense report. But then, okay, here's the proof that I went, that it was me that got on the airplane. It wasn't another person using my credit card who went for me and stayed at the hotel for me. This was me. Nowadays, you can't, you know, before, I think when I was growing up, you could even, you know, use somebody else's, you had a plane ticket and anything, you could just fly. This is a long time ago. But they're going to check your ID. You've got to be the same person that is on that ticket. So that is proof that you boarded the plane. That's proof. Reservations are not proof. And that was the point that Candace Owens was making. And anybody who insists that no, that is proof, is either lying or stupid.
Yeah, is what happens when an award exceeds the worth of the defendant. So, for instance, I've read somewhere where, you know, this Ryan Up Church is worth $3 or $4 million. He now has an award, but he has a penalty of $18 million. Clearly, they're not going to get that out of him. How does that work exactly?
So two things. Number one, there is a collection phase. So once the judgment is entered, let's assume for a second Ryan Upchurch, his defense lawyers decide there's no appealable issue. By the way, I'm sure there will be an attempt at an appeal. Let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say they weigh the pros and cons, and they decide that, you know what, we're not going to appeal, but we're going to pick up the phone and call plaintiff's counsel and say, look, I know you got an $18 million judgment, but my client doesn't have anywhere near that in assets. And frankly, his YouTube money is mostly in sponsorships, and it's dwindled down. So the most that we have that's collectible is $200,000 in a checking account. He's got a few AP watches. He's got a Porsche, and he lives in an apartment in a high-rise condo, and we've got a bunch of expensive recording equipment. So what do you want to do? At that point, plaintiffs have an option. They could try to chase this guy for 10 years, 20 years, or however long it takes, with interest on the judgment accruing at the statutory rate, okay? Or they could say, I want to get paid as much as I can get paid now because it's going to cost money to chase this guy.
Gotcha.
We see a mix of those things happen. That's what happened with CNN. When Zachary Young won that multi-million-dollar jury verdict against CNN where he proved actual malice. We don't know what the settlement was, but it was going into the punitive phase. That's the phase of this case that played out in the Upchurch case. When that was happening, CNN cut a check or made a settlement. We don't know how much it is.
Hmm.
So number one thing,
CNN, when I was in Spain, I was going to CNN all the time. I contacted them several times about the problem. So I got a lawsuit against CNN, I guess, on this one as well. Well, they're involved in the cover-up. I mean, 18 million, that's chicken feed.
thing for people to understand is there's an opportunity for plaintiffs and defense to come to an agreement, regardless of what the judgment was at trial, right? That could happen. It's usually a smart thing to do. The second thing that could happen is defense says, we're not writing a check for anything, come get it. And when you play dirty and move assets around and move money around, courts can actually make you undo that. So it's not a prudent thing to do, but we don't know how collectible he is. So yes, I mean, collectability is a problem. We don't know if he has insurance coverage, if this case was indemnified through, again, people who are content creators who are smart can have policies that cover liability, but it's probably not an $18 million liability policy. So filing bankruptcy is interesting because I've had judgments against, our firm has had judgments against high net worth people who then file bankruptcy. And you can actually contest the bankruptcy because it's an intentional tort. It's like punching somebody in the face, breaking their nose, causing a concussion, giving them TBI, and then filing bankruptcy and saying, I don't have $150,000 to pay your bills. It's an intentional tort. You can actually push them to avoid bankruptcy on that amount. In other words, the judge can say, we'll give you bankruptcy other than the intentional tort damages. So bankruptcy is not always an option. Usually it's not with these kinds of cases. So I don't know how well this Ryan Upchurch dude is doing financially. I have no idea. I'm sure people who are sleuthy could try to figure out a general idea of how much he makes.
Interesting. Yeah. So going back into this
is just a way of the courts to censor podcasters and send a strong message that they will be involved in censorship when le da la gana, whenever it suits their pleasure.
Mr. Upchurch had a loyal following of viewers who referred themselves as Creek Squad. Upchurch directed the Creek Squad to search for Kiely Rodni's vehicle and posted Google Earth images of Daniel Rodney's former home, falsely stated that he had found Kiely's car there. While generating hundreds of thousands of views on his video relating to Kiely Rodney's disappearance, several Creek Squad members made outlandish videos of their own. In one of these videos, Julio speculated that Rodney Robertson was performing child sacrifices at the lodge as part of a religious cult. David Robinson and Daniel Rodney have each experienced extreme emotional stress attributed to Upchurch postings, compounding their already profound grief at the tragic loss of their granddaughter and daughter. The lawsuit seeks to hold Upchurch accountable for his tortious actions and intentional misconduct, as outlined below. David Robertson is a citizen of...
The thing is somebody just posting, there are always going to be speculations. There's a murder, there's a missing person, there's always going to be speculations. And the family, you're going to be online, like looking at all of those speculations. Like, really, the best line there is, unless you believe foul play, like in the place of Charlie Kirk, people are always going to come out with outlandish things. It's the Streisand effect. You give it credence, and all of a sudden, people are like, "Wait a second, what's going on there?"
Citizen resident of California. So is Daniel Rodney. Ryan Upchurch is a citizen of Tennessee that resides in the Middle District of Tennessee. The court jurisdiction. We also saw this. So this is essentially a federal case because it now exceeds $75,000. Is that correct, Raees?
Yeah, you have diversity, which means there's no common ground between the plaintiffs and defendants, and because there's interstate commerce, meaning the use of the internet. And the reach is nationwide, and you have damages that are alleged to be over $75,000. So that's why it's in federal court.
Got it. Ryan Upchurch began posting about Kiely Rodni on YouTube on August 13th. At this time, the whereabouts of Kiely Rodni were unknown. In these videos, Upchurch offered outlandish theories of the truth of what happened to Kiely Rodni. Upchurch initially theorized that this person named Ronnie, who was a caller to a YouTube show called YouTuber Iced Mel, was a red herring and made-up character. I read this earlier. He said, dude, be careful. You can get sued for slander. Obviously, he said, you can slander these nuts. It goes on. I don't know if there's a particular point in this that you'd like to hit. This is about where I was able to pretty much stopped, I think, reading it before the show. But this was Kiely Rodni, and she was obviously found almost a month later in her vehicle.
So go back to the date of that, if you wouldn't mind. The reason why this is great, The reason why this is in the complaint, can you go scroll down to where in the screen, in that image you just showed of Kylie, it says identity. Yeah, right here. Identity of.
I don't know. It took them a month to find this girl. If somebody had been paying attention, we saw, this was in the previous video, of the lights and how, you know, there was some sort of videos of all of the different lights, car lights of people at the party, and there was one car that went off, and it was her car, and then went out into the water and disappeared. Now, if somebody had paid attention from that at the beginning, it wouldn't take them a month to find her. And also, wouldn't you have gone looking for, I mean, okay, the car was gone, so that complicates the thing. But then aren't you looking for tire tracks? Wouldn't have there been some tire tracks and would have traced the car real quick with that? I didn't follow this case, so I don't know what happened.
Kylie Rodney confirmed. Look at the italicized language. Image uploaded by Placer County Sheriff's Department on August 23rd, 2022.
Yeah.
Do you know why that's material? Why that's important?
This case took a long time.
Well, the reason it's important is if you're a content creator theorizing that she was a fake person or that she was someone else that she was not, the identity was confirmed. Now, I don't know how they confirmed her identity other than they pulled her body, right? This is not a body that was decomposed through fire or burned. It was pulled out of the water.
Right.
And while moisture decomposes bodies more rapidly than dryness does, it was not, at least my understanding, completely decomposed. In other words, and you have dental records, and I don't know how else they identified, but you have a hit. Obviously, it's her car. They probably checked other things. They verified it's her. If you are a YouTuber who has conspiracy theory saying that she was non-existent person and her family was running a GoFundMe scam, you better change your theory based on that announcement. Why? What's your basis now? You actually have facts.
Wait. Hold on. Because can't you just write off?
Yeah, see, this is where Raees is he should look in the mirror. Has he been following what's been going online with Candace and the investigation? I mean, it boggles my mind how anybody who understands the law is going to come in and attack Candace on Gary Melton's platform, because they're setting themselves up to be accessory in a defamation lawsuit. And in my case, because Gary Melton's ultimate objective here, you know, bashing Candace is just a means to the end. It's to make sure that the military industrial complex and all of their participation in assassinations and because this is treason. You know, when it gets into the president, attempting to kill the president, that's treason. Now, was that faked? That's not treason. You know, there's a whole bunch of questions that come up, but yeah, they're on thin ice here.
Like, I don't know. Let's say you have a charging document and you have evidence listed in there. Don't you just get to write that off and call that Fed slop and say, no, I don't accept these as facts, and then continue to slander people?
So, once again, you criticizing a government investigation, like a police investigation here, is fair game. So if you say,
just one sec, please. Okay, sorry, I had to stop share for a second. Oh, where did I go?
hey, you know what? Tennessee PD or whoever, PD pulled the body. And I know they said that they used dental records, but I'm looking at the dental records and there's some discrepancy in the dental records. That's legit.
Yep. But
if you say, I know they pulled a body, I know there was a DNA match, because think about it. You have her hair from a brush at home. If they really were concerned, they could test her DNA. But you know what? I'm going to disregard that that's her. I really think that her parents planted evidence, dropped the car in the lake, and are raising millions of dollars in a GoFundMe, because that's my factual narrative. You don't get to create the facts. And again, a jury agrees with me on that. to the tune of $18 million.
But that's exactly what the authorities have done in the Tyler Robinson case. They've created all sorts of misinformation facts. For example, the Discord confession obviously couldn't have come from Tyler Robinson because it was done after Tyler Robinson was already in custody. So, you know, the only one who's been creating false facts are the authorities. Well, no, that's not true. Because it, like Bednar, you know, it's fine with coming up with theories and all of these things. Well, look at this here. At the beginning, I mean, it was fascinating. People were scrutinizing every single little tiny detail. Look how he has his arms folded. This is, you know, could possibly be a handgun. Now, I mean, this type of thing should be encouraged. There's, I mean, Jordan Henshaw, there's some, including me, concerned he might hurt himself with zapping himself so often. But, you know, the official narrative is not making sense. And even if you are the authorities, you come onto a crime scene, you don't want to just jump to some conclusion, because often that's not the case. You know, sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. But it is gross negligence to not, you know, to not ask questions of things. This does not make sense. Like, it was a suicide. He shot himself in the head and hung himself. How do you manage that one? Obviously, not a suicide. And there's too many of those.
So where the line is drawn, and I want to be very clear on this, when you have a factual record that is developed, we can all agree that the sky during the day on an average day is somewhere between a tinge of gray with blue to blue and navy blue. But if your argument is that the sky...
but see, I use this example of a debate and being a good debater, because I could even challenge that one. I know exactly how to challenge that one. Well, it depends. Is this a person looking at the sky? Because, you know, color is what we perceive. I mean, that's coming through our lenses in our eyes. For example, there are many different animals who don't see color, see different colors and stuff like that. So yeah, he pulled out a bad one on that one, because I said that one time, I'm like, it's like saying the sky is blue, you know, saying the sky is red when obviously we see it's blue. And then I'm like, wait a second, I guess if you have to add in there of a human being. See how my mind is, but that's also, it drives me crazy sometimes, because I'm constantly challenging, well, wait a second, well, wait a second, well, wait a second. But this is also why, at the end of the day, don't often jump to conclusions. And I have in my lifetime, and that's how I've learned, I shouldn't jump to conclusions, because when I do jump to conclusions, I usually go down a wrong path, just like everybody else. And that's why being an old lady is actually an advantage in this situation. It worth much more than all the diplomas out there.
I don't know, pick a color, Gary.
Purple.
Let's exclude sunrise and sunset. Let's say it's middle of the day, it's noon. You're like, no, it's magenta, it's purple, or it's violet, and those are my facts, that's my reality. You're crazy. Yeah. Like, that's not, those are factual statements. You can debate the shade of gray and blue and when the sun rises and sunsets. but you can't reinvent the facts. And I'm glad that this verdict happened when it did, because there has to be a message to people who you have a responsibility when you have that many.
If you're really good at philosophy and debate, I learned this. This was Orange Grove Road. Oh, no. It was Orange Grove Road. And we had to debate. And I think it might have had to do with abortion, but I wouldn't think that they give us that. But anyway, I had to debate something, and whatever they gave me to argue for, I said, but I don't agree with this. And I forget it was a man or a woman. I said, well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, this is precisely a good debater. It doesn't matter if you agree with that premise or not. Whatever that premise I give you, you have to go out there and debate it, and prove your premise. And I mean, I was not too happy at the time. I was like, that's silly. That's silly. That's it. Of course, if I don't believe it, I can't. As I say, this is junior high. But then I thought about it, and I was like, no, they're right. And I mean, it served me well throughout college and into life and everything. And I've got to be just as good as defending my side as challenging my adversaries and anticipating what my adversary's position is going to be. And having that prepared, being all prepared. I mean, a good lawyer never asks a question he doesn't know an answer to. So I go in, I'm already prepared. I already know everybody in the room and what they're going to say before it comes out of their mouths, before they probably even think it. You always got to be ahead of them. Particularly if they all come after you at one time. I mean, my Lord. I don't pick fights. I do not pick fights with anybody. But I told everybody from the beginning, you fuck with my kids and I'll fuck with you.
Followers. And I don't care what people's political views are, red, blue, gray, green, in between. When you're that big, this guy had 3 million subscribers. When you were that big, you have a responsibility. Now, something else is critical, Gary. The jury got to hear evidence that Ryan Upchurch's followers, that he ramped them up to harass the family. Like, come on. This is a family that's grieving over the loss of their daughter who just died, drowned, no less. And you're telling people, now, I don't want to say...
Okay, no, I didn't personally see this because it was proved in the courts. I don't believe anything the courts say anymore. I would have to look at the footage myself. That's totally unacceptable. But that's not going to be stopped by a lawsuit. Because as you saw, 18 million, yeah. But of course, if he doesn't have that, they're not going to get it from him. Okay, give us everything you have. We'll destroy you completely financially. Can he recoup? Can he recoup? Who knows? And if not, what's going to, is it going to go into illegal stuff? I mean, they've got to survive. And as I say, it's not going to be stopped for a lawsuit. It's going to be stopped when it becomes socially unacceptable. Online, as well as in, offline communities. You see somebody doing that, shame them. You shouldn't be, even if, let's just say there is some suspect and they're making this all up. The proper way to deal with it is not mob rule and going after them. It's notifying the authorities. These people are running a scam. Investigate it. If it's true, it's true. Then the scam is stopped, and people can go to prison. It depends, it depends on the gravity of the situation. I'm not like lock them up, lock them up. No, you don't have to just throw everybody in prison, but stop the activity, and that you report that to the authorities. That's the proper. If that's working, then people aren't going to, going to the mob rule stuff.
Say he told them to do this, but the allegation in the complaint is he basically pointed them to where the family lives and said, let's show them who's boss, kind of a thing. And his weirdo followers are now harassing the family. I think, was it grandpa or maybe dad or somebody?
Yeah, but posting people's, like, where people live online. I mean, I find that, to send them a letter or something, of course I need a physical address. Sometimes I find it, sometimes I don't, but I always make sure that it's blacked out online and you can't see it. If somebody else finds their address through the same means that I did, well, that's not my fault. But as I say, I'm never going to be the one. Not that I'm inciting violence or anything like that. That just crosses a line that shouldn't be crossed. Now, if it's the person's place of work, no, that's public record, and you want to show that you sent it to the place that they worked. I'm racking my brain. How do I get to Bobby Kennedy without, I can't find his home address. I know he's in Georgetown. And I'm afraid that it's going to be intercepted if I send it to HHS. I tried to get through to his wife, dumb, blonde Hollywood actress. Right. Yeah. Bobby doesn't have great taste in women. And I mean, okay, the pickings ain't great. I get it. I've already tried that. That was during the elections. Randy Hines as well, Las Vegas. Of course, I've gotten nowhere there, which just reinforces he's the Kennedy coalition of Las Vegas. I'm like, because now with Mary Adelson, is there a connection there? Was it really to keep Bobby out of the White House? Is that what Randy Hines was supposed to do? I don't know. Questions that need answers. I wish some journalists would start asking.
Owned a business, I think it was a restaurant, and they started leaving all these fake reviews, and it's alleged in the complaint. Yeah.
Yep. I believe it was grandfather.
So just imagine how horrendous that is. Your granddaughter drowned in a horrendous local accident. Okay, never mind that she was intoxicated or on drugs or whatever her circumstances were. It's still a hard pill to swallow for the family. And you're now.
Never mind that she was on drugs and intoxicated, and so. Well, I don't know, because apparently she tried to get out of the car. So if the car went into the lake, but would it go in that fast and go under that fast? I mean, it's very sad. I mean, it's totally inappropriate for people to be harassing this girl's family, and a crime in itself. But when is everybody in the United States going to accept the fact that we have a serious, and I mean serious, Houston, we got a problem, serious, of teens getting drunk, getting on drugs, promiscuous sex. The kids are out of control. Absolutely out of control. And the solution is not a pendulum back to the 1930s, which Gary Melton wants to put in there. Or Melton, sorry. I'm doing it too. Wants to bring us back to of straitjackets. And if you don't do as, I mean, the old guard Republican, my mother, Nancy Reagan, mommy dearest. That's no solution. That's
sending
why
people to the home
my generation rebelled.
or to the business to harass. And that's dog shit, man. Oh my God. This case should have never gone to trial, Gary. If I was the defense lawyer and I lost that motion to dismiss, I would have settled this case.
Yeah. Well, and even here it says on August 22nd, the day after Kylie Rodney's body was found, Upchurch posted a video which appeared to express his condolences to Kylie's mom, Kylie's family, and Kylie's friends. This is upon the information and belief Upchurch was aware on August 22nd that the authorities had stated that they recovered a body that was more than likely Kylie Rodney. In the same video, Upchurch criticized other YouTubers for capitalizing on Kylie Rodney's case to promote themselves. 2 days later, Upchurch uploaded a video promoting his own music. After Kylie Rodney's body is found, her identity is confirmed. Upchurch publicly claims Kylie Rodney is a bullshit person. Her family is not real. Her death is a scam to raise money on GoFundMe. Again, do you realize it?
Somebody really, if you're going to make that kind of claim, you really should have proof. I mean, and to bring this in, the Candace Owens, I have no idea why they're trying to bring relevance in with this case to the Candace Owens stuff. That's ludicrous. Because no, there are some legitimate, it's not just Candace Owens, everybody. Raees Mohamed, have you looked? Really studied all of the different criticisms of Erica from the beginning of this whole thing? And it's not just Erica, it's other members and how they reacted. Now, I'm the first one, and I've been saying this for a while, because I've been observing and going, well, what's going on here? What's going on here? I mean, you don't want to jump to conclusions. And I think it's, you're dealing with a bunch of narcissists and psychopaths. Washington and New York are filled with them. I mean, that's all there are. That's why New York is in such dire straits. Washington is not far behind. It's been headed down this road since before I got here in the 70s. When I got here in the 70s, it was the murder capital of the USA. All cocaine. I mean, why was it only me at the American Embassy in 1999 in Bogota standing up and saying at the end of the presentation of Plan Colombia, well, it's all well and good to get rid of the drug production, but until you get rid of the consumption in the United States, the production's just going to leave Colombia and go elsewhere. Now we got the problem in Mexico. Yeah, the French ambassador to Bogota when I was there, Ingrid Betancourt's sister was his mistress. Then when he went back to Paris. Then he was French ambassador in Mexico. By that time, Ingrid had been married and divorcing him. He's on his third wife now. He's left the diplomatic corps and now within the private sector in Mexico. Look at Mexico. Yeah, well, Ingrid and Astrid were having it all and advancing their careers, and all of the ruling elite of Bogota, the women my age, I'm the trad wife. You know, I mean, all of the high society of Bogota, they really should all be ashamed of themselves. But it's not just from that. It's also what is it? Santo Domingo. I forget, there's the Dominguez family. These are textile, these are fashion people. Colombia, he's like one of the wealthiest families of Colombia. I didn't know them when they were there, but he's married to the daughter of one of the alumni of my boarding school, Cobham Hall. She's one of the aristocracy. I forget who it is off the top of my head. I don't want to go onto the page. Cobham Hall School, the alumni. It's one of the aristocracy. It's not, I think it's Wesley. Name it. Anyway, I'm too tired of looking at all of this shit and going through all of these names time and time and time again and explaining to everybody how this is all linked and how the networks are connected. This is the Epstein class. I've been telling you all about these people for 20 years and how they're all connected. And a lot of this is nobody wants to be involved in any unpleasantness. Nobody wants to look at any unpleasantness. Whereas that's all there is to be seen. Erica Kirk, honeypot, my lord. One of my favorites is Pamela Harriman. Her first husband was Winston Churchill's grandson, I believe it's. Yeah, not the son, the grandson. It was said about Pamela Harriman. I mean, look her up. Apparently, what was it said? She's seen the ceiling of she's seen every man's ceiling in this town. Is it any wonder that the men are either afraid of American women or can't stand them, have nothing to do with them? They're all either neurotic suburban housewives, like, you know, the I've Had It podcast, Jennifer Welch and her Pump Sullivan. You got the white chick flicks, or what, the white chicks. That's another one. I'm like, people, the world is watching. I remember when the whole reality TV came out, all of these TV shows, and like the Jerry Springer. I was like, oh my God. We were moving into the house in Madrid, and I'd be fixing dinner and it'd come on. It had been syndicated. I mean, these were old stuff, and it had been syndicated, and I'd have it on, and I'd be fixing dinner, and I'd be like, told my sons, come in here, you've got to see. I was like, you cannot believe this is mom's country. This is why I left. These people are crazy. My poor sons. There's not a minute of every day that I haven't prayed to God, just let this end, let me go home. But yeah, the whole country is crazy. And unfortunately, I fled it, but as I found, no. Grass is no greener anyplace else. Okay. I've been bitching on.
You can be a millionaire on GoFundMe. Basically, further,
okay,
essentially trying to solidify the fact that they are, pulling a scam. Which
this is the hard part. This is where, listen, criticize the investigation. Criticize.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if she was drunk. I think she was intoxicated. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But let's just say she was. Criticize underage drinking or DUI.
Yeah.
That's legitimate. But now you're talking about the family running a scam or questioning, is it a scam? When they recovered a body. I mean, it's sensationalism that should not be rewarded.
Yeah.
Right.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
But not through litigation and something like this.
Upchurch, again, he's running his own investigation. He posted a Google Earth record.
You know who made the most money from all of this shit and who's going to really cash in on that? The lawyers. Now I agree this guy is playing into the hands. This podcaster, he should have been shamed out of the business. And that's precisely with Gary. I'm like, Gary, you should be ashamed of yourself because Candace is asking legitimate questions. The presumption of innocence has to be upheld in a court of law. Now, from the beginning, there have been all sorts of people who have tried and convicted Tyler Robinson with nothing but hearsay. And they've completely violated his right to due process. And that's what everybody should be focused on. Every time that Gary tries to deviate the conversation away from that point, he should be challenged. I totally agree.
Purporting to locate Daniel Rodney's home.
Horrible.
So he's zooming in on this pixelated image and saying this is another picture of Kylie's CRV. So again, and we see this, a lot of parallels here where people are taking information that is subjective and interpreting it in the worst possible way to point guilt in the direction of another person.
He does this all the time. What concrete example are you using? You're going to pull out Blake? Oh, I mean, quite frankly, yeah, Blake is being shamed. I mean, it's not clear exactly what Blake's agenda is, because he's had some erratic behavior. And there is, some of the people, there was another guy I covered, what's his name? He only gave his first name, Paul, I think it is. And he offered he had given some information to Blake that Blake was passing off as his own. And that came out, and, he even said there's a lot of infighting, there's a lot of egos and stuff going on here that's inappropriate. And it should be condemned. Now, should everybody be sued? Oh, God, stop that shit. We need to clean up the courts instead of just, come on in. Everybody's corrupt and greedy, and they don't give a shit. I keep on trying to explain to lawyers. If you have a client who is trying to extort money from somebody and doing something illegal in the process, and you enable that extortion, you become accessory. I mean, I have the case against the DC landlord tenant courts on that one. I explained, the letters that I sent, she went through 2 lawyers. I thought the first lawyer had gotten the message. The other one, somebody else said, no, that one's more expensive, and she got a cheaper one because you weren't going to back off. It's like, okay. I mean, and I made sure, it wasn't just a 1-pager. I thought she would get the message and we wouldn't end up going down the line. But she didn't. But I have explained this time and time and time and time again. Nobody seems to get it through their head. If you are involved in malicious litigation designed to harass or extort another person, you are becoming accessory to criminal activity. And I know the Bar Association doesn't come after you. I know DOJ has its head up its ass and they're not doing jack shit. That's why the country's falling apart. But there's some pissed off moms who have been watching and taking note. They won't work together, and I keep on telling them, you keep on proving that you need a man to organize you. So stop bitching about your patriarchal systems.
Kylie Rodney is not Kylie Rodney. Kylie Rodney is Callie Ross. Callie Ross' dad is fake Kylie Rodney's grandpa.
But by the way, on that fact, this poor girl, Callie Ross, if I understand the facts correctly, is a real person. She started getting harassed. The police knocked on her door. And I mean, can you imagine?
No, I can't imagine.
That's another level of harassment.
Yeah.
When you entangle people into somebody who died saying it's fake or you're running a scam.
Yeah.
But it's as unacceptable for podcasters to be promoting harassment and extortion as it is for the lawyers.
Kylie's grandpa here again is talking more about Kylie Rodney's some woman named Callie Ross. Video coming in an hour. Specifically, Upchurch stated, I would not say this unless I was 100% confident. Kylie Rodney is not real. Her grandfather is not real. Her dad is not real. Her mom is not real. All the pictures and videos you're seeing of Kylie Rodney person are actual pictures and videos from someone else. And, you know, the part of the crazy part of this and how this also relates to Candace Owens and Erica Kirk in the Charlie Kirk case is you're convinced you have this person that has gained the trust of an audience. And now they're saying, I have evidence that not only are the parents clearly scamming you, but also this also implicates law enforcement. It implicates the idea that we can't trust basic evidence or anything else. And I'm sure there are cases out there, maybe you've seen cases where
wait, no, we can't trust basic evidence. No, we can't trust, you know, falsified evidence or evidence that doesn't have proper documentation that it's real. Just because somebody says this is a piece of evidence doesn't make it a piece of evidence. Look, I have this, you know, a bloody handkerchief. It came from XYZ. You know, there are standards of what you have to prove as evidence. And Gary, oh, I'm sure there's instances. No, I mean, I've been researching. I didn't just jump into this and start bitching. You know, Gary Melton, if you want to challenge me on this, check out all of the research that I've done. War on domestic terrorism, there's the newsletters you can read through, and then there's a bunch of reports. On one, it's how sexually abused children are being handed over to the abuser, how that's happening and working in the courts. The others is on mother's rights, women's rights. So, you know, and that evidence has been out there for 70 years. I went through it all. I put it into a compact report. It's been out on the internet for about 15 years now. Nobody I know across the globe or that I have sent emails to or letters to can say, well, I didn't know. No, you were informed. So stop with this, you know, oh, it's isolated incidents. No, it's happening at rates of 70 to 90%.
there are officials that will, you know, attempt to press charges, will use evidence that's not legitimate. But, you know, this idea where you have this multi-agency and hundreds of people involved, especially with the Charlie Kirk case, in this case, I'm sure there's at least dozens of people involved that are.
I have been proving that by sending a letter to this person. You're not doing your job. You have to do your job. Then, you know, the State Department is not doing its job. So we take it over to the congressional member. Who's your congressman? If you're living abroad, it would be wherever you lived before, or, you know, where you have family living. In my case, for example, it was Arizona, Louisiana, Florida. My father was born in Florida. The web designers that got involved in the scams with my husband and, you know, cyberjacked my website in 2007, they're in Florida. Then I also lived in Miami for a while in '89. So standing again there. Of course, DC. I mean, I worked for Senator Bennett Johnston. That's another, you know, you would think my former employer would have, of course, I'll tell, you know, pick up the phone or tell my secretary, send an email to the consulate in Madrid and tell them, look, this young woman worked for me and there's something going on. Would you please make sure a consular agent attends her and you know, assures that the lawyers are not screwing her over. That's all that had to be done. But nobody wanted to be involved in any unpleasantness, even though Amnesty International estimated I had 0.25% chance of survival. You know, so yeah, it is this coordinated, and a lot of it is complete incompetence, stupidity, arrogance. You have war on domestic terrorism, taking back America for the people, Gary Melton. Check it out. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is hard, cold fact.
Creating this, the optics that, the person they pulled out of the river or out of this lake is not the person that they are saying it is. And that this is like all some big conspiracy. It's fun. It's exciting. And then you have a person saying, I am 100% sure I have the evidence.
Why is it fun and exciting? Who said it was fun and exciting? Or is that Gary Melton who says it's fun and exciting? I don't know if it's anybody's idea of fun.
Which there's a lot of people out there that feel like that Candace is 100% sure, and she brings receipts saying that Erica Kirk is involved in the death of Charlie Kirk. And you were talking earlier, Raees.
Oh my Lord, how many times do we have to go out through this? Candace has never said that Erica was involved in well, it depends on what you're talking about, involved in the death of Charlie Kirk. Did she have knowledge that this was going to happen? Because, I mean, this obviously goes very, very deep within the, up to the top of the Republican Party. Charlie Kirk, he was not being obedient, and the narrative, he was not going to support the Israeli cause anymore. Yeah, he got out of line. This is Machiavellian game playing 101 in Washington, D.C. Now, these hillbillies across the country can't understand what the dangerous games, and I mean, it really is concerning, because those games are being played amongst the ruling elite of each state in the country. And these guys sitting there going, no, it's all in your mind. That's concerning.
When you were kind of laying out the picture of the courtroom and the jury, what I was thinking that whole time is, as the jury is seeing the video of Charlie Kirk murdered, and you have Erica Kirk over there, I'm sure she'll be distraught as they're going through all this stuff. And then they present all the evidence that they have and the dates they had it on, but yet we're still going with this idea that the French Foreign Legion, Israel, this person, that person, and then we circle back to Erica Kirk was at Fort Huachuca, and they're planning, along with Brian Harpole, that they're planning the assassination.
Well, I don't know. See, the thing is, French Foreign Legion, I think Candace did mention that before the holidays. And the thing is I forget who it interview with whom, but oh yeah, the French Foreign Legion, they'll accept the worst of the worst. I mean, it's apparently like where criminals go to hide, like former assassins, and I think it's always kind of been like that since the time. I mean, when I think of the French Foreign Legion, I think of some Hollywood movie and those guys with their their hats that had those skirts on them over their ears, traipsing through the Sahara Desert. For me, that's the French Foreign Legion. But yeah, no, it's a military industrial complex of France that is supposedly the most filled with the most criminal elements of all of the different how shall I say it, Gestapo arms of the respective governments. I mean, the Americans have theirs, the French have theirs, the British and Spaniards, they all have their version.
With the U.S. military, and then that episode is predicated by what I'm getting ready to show you. After this video, the U.S. military is going to have no choice but to come out and admit that they were involved in the death of Charlie Kirk. And of course, throughout that video, you're saying that Brian Harpole is involved in this and Erica Kirk is involved in this. I feel, again, you tell me if I'm mischaracterizing any of this, but in my mind, it's really bad.
I think the public sentiment, and again, let me try to be as objective as possible.
Sure.
Let's say we have a truly neutral jury in Tennessee where this trial would take place, the Candace Owens case.
Yep.
Are they going to believe that Candace was stating her opinion?
I mean, I love how he adds that, a neutral jury. Just under the assumption that juries are not like they're inferior, because there is, see, the whole thing being tried by your peers in the jury. This came about because people were not trusting the people within the judicial system. That problem has not been resolved. And so we're going to add the jury into that to solve the problem, because then it's your peers who are judging you. But some of your peers can be worse. So it's been, this was, one of those solutions put in a long time ago, that never has been like really examined. Is this really like addressing the problems that we had in the old system? No, it's exacerbating it.
Based on disclosed facts? Or are they going to believe that Candace knew what she was saying was outlandish, and so outlandish that she knew it was false, meaning actual malice? So the question that the jury is going to have to answer is that. And again, I juxtaposition this case, the Upchurch case, with Candace's case. And granted, there's an important distinguishing point here, Gary, which is that Candace is certainly a public figure. She's also a content publisher. So Harpole is going to have to prove actual malice. I don't think that's up for debate. In this case that we saw in Tennessee with Upchurch, there was no actual malice standard required. Or at least to the extent that it was required, it was certainly shown. I don't think that
Candace, there is no malice.
I don't think that Candace Owens for a second is going to get a pass by the jury. And because this is
she's not going to get a pass on the jury. They're not going to be able to prove malice on the part of Candace Owens. The only thing she's trying to do is find out who killed her friend, and not going to drink and pass out the Kool-Aid of the authorities.
Jury question. I don't know. Gary, do you think they're going to be sympathetic?
I sure don't see that. And again, I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can be. I don't. I think
Gary Melton doesn't know how to be objective.
Once they see it laid out, especially if people, hopefully these are 12 objective people and they don't know that much about the case. And I think as that's laid out to them within the constraints of a courtroom, I sure don't think that they're going to be sympathetic with her at all. Because even the people, this is one of the things that I've talked about, the reason that some of these people believe Candace Owens is she's been able to incrementally condition them and indoctrinate them. I've said this lots of times where I think some of these people...
Those are defamatory words. Note that. I'd love to see him prove that one. Oh, God. I hope Candace sues him.
That are all in on this, that think Erica Kirk is the evilest person in the world and believes that she was involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. I think if they were able to go back to their September 10th
unfortunately, evilest person in the world. Unfortunately, no, she's just par for the course. That's how dire straits the situation is. Look at it. Ashley Sinclair. I believe it's Ashley. The video I mean, it was precious. She's like exposing the mean girl witchery going on at the top levels of the Trump administration. I've known, and the sad thing is, it's going on everywhere, 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 everywhere.
Self and saw what their present self was posting online and saying online, I think they'd be disgusted with themselves. But I don't know. I think a reasonable person is going to feel the same way that I do. Like, there's so much evidence that Erica Kirk and so much evidence that Tyler Robinson pulled this off. If you want to talk about what happened before, that he was potentially radicalized online, that other people may have known about this. We saw social media posts that were in the LGBTQ community, in the trans community, that were referencing that something was going to happen. I'm all about that. Like, let's figure that out. I think it's very improbable that Lance Twiggs didn't know that this was going to happen, especially when he's clearly engraving bullets. He's taking we know that there are targets that were shot, unshot targets. So like, it's hard for me to believe that his planning process was taking place in a vacuum. And, Lance Twiggs didn't know anything about it, but we also see that he has a history of pretty extreme.
Yeah. So why, why is only Tyler Robinson being accused and tried? That's another thing people are not understanding. It's like, why are you guys? This is not a lone gunman, and the ballistics don't show that it was a 30-06. Gary Melton even said that at the beginning. So what's happening here? When the fundamental facts don't make sense, it's completely justifiable that people are asking questions and speculating. Now, if you don't like their speculations, give them something that makes sense.
Drug use and maybe even some mental instability. So maybe I don't know, but that's for the prosecution to determine, decide, and present evidence for. But I sure don't think that a reasonable jury is going to be very sympathetic to Candace Owens.
So there was a question asked when I was listening on my drive, and the question, if I recall, was, is there this insanity sort of defense, right? Yeah. Am I right that somebody asked about that?
Yeah.
It's an interesting. It's a very, very interesting question, right? Because in a criminal case, we know that guilty but insane can be an exception, and you'd have to prove insanity. And even in Arizona, actually, when I was an intern in law school, I worked at the Attorney General's office in the Health and Education Division. I got to go to these hearings where somebody chopped their dad's head off with a kitchen knife, and they pled insanity, and they're not criminally convicted; they're civilly committed. And I'm sitting in this, what's like an administrative courtroom, watching this guy testify that, Your Honor, I've been taking my medication and I should be let out in the public. And I'm like, I'm one step away from having some maniac standing in front of me at the grocery store who could literally slice my throat any minute because he doesn't like my beard or something. My point is this: that doesn't exist in the civil side. With torts, we talked about getting punched in the face when there's a bar fight. Why do drunk?
Brought up something here that's important that I want to address. So, that he would be afraid that somebody would stab him because they didn't like his beard. Well, it's not just his beard, it's his Muslim, Arab, Middle Eastern appearance. So it's not just his beard that they don't like, what he's referring to. So let's make that clear from the get-go. Now, the thing is, why does that situation exist in this country? Because anti-Muslim sentiments have been promoted since the 1980s. Never Without My Daughter, or Not Without My Daughter, is a perfect example. And that was, I think that came out in 1987. And that's like, for me at least, the first sign we have of this anti-Muslim propaganda, which has later then been used to justify wars against Iraq and in the Middle East. And that, who was it? I think it was Nate, who was talking with another vet who said, yeah, you know, you go over there, and in order for us to kill these people, they have to be villainized. We have to hate these Muslims. And then coming back to the United States, it's very difficult. You've been conditioned, you know, in order to kill somebody, you're going to have to hate that person. It's going to be kind of hard to kill a person that you have no beef with. So of course they have to become the enemy. And this is an age-old story. And my beef, you know, religions have always been, you know, God is with us. Wait a second, you guys. You're both, you know, let's put it, the Muslims against the Christians. Both of you believe in one God, the true God. So you're worshiping the same God. Yet both of you believe that that one God is on your side and you're going to be the winner of the war. Now, can somebody explain this, how this works? Because I'm not getting it. That makes sense. No, you're being indoctrinated. You're being, you know, brainwashed to hate your enemy. So you will go and kill them. So the first time that I saw a journalist being ousted, fired for freedom of speech issues was Juan Williams, 2010. This is NPR. He's ousted from NPR, National Public Radio. That's a woke. It's been a voice of the woke, just like Voice of America. Tucker Carlson's father's thing was like a CIA propaganda machine. NPR is the propaganda machine for the woke liberals. So he was ousted 2010. This is the same year I'm meeting with NPR's ombudsman Alicia Shepard about my children in Spain and my old case in Spain, and she sweeps it under the carpet. She's the cousin of a friend of my mother's. So unfortunately, Alicia Shepard's dead now, so she can't answer questions in the International Criminal Courts. And Juan Williams can. So anyway, he gets ousted because he says that he becomes concerned when he gets on an airplane. He's getting on an airplane and there is a man dressed in Muslim garb, you know, the turban or the long robes or something, but some sort of Muslim garb, and he's very concerned and he feels bad. Juan Williams is from Panama, but he's black. So he's got, you know, black blood and Latino. But so he's like, you know, here I am a minority and you know, I feel bad because I'm having these biased thoughts towards Muslim people. And I'm concerned because I'm being biased towards this person. He's just getting on a plane. But after 9/11, well, we've all become paranoid. And I'm like, well, but that's because the media has been promoting this propaganda and everybody has been promoting this anti-Muslim propaganda in order to justify going to war in the Middle East for so long that, of course. So, Raees Mohamed, why aren't you concerned, you know, that you're at a heightened level that somebody might, you know, random person come and knife you because of the color of your skin? We saw with the, what's the young woman's name who was on the public transportation and got stabbed because she was white. Yeah, it's happening to the whites in this country. It's happening to everybody. I've been the target in hate crimes here in DC. At the IMF, it was particularly the Middle Eastern women. I mean, Adrienne Thapa, the office manager of ICD, she's Indian. Kalpana Kochar, she was head of IMF HR. she's Indian as well. So Indian, Pakistani, uh, but then there was Egyptian. So, a little cesspool of Middle Easterns, but Kate Phillips from New Zealand was involved in that. It's all, see, you had there, you see how the feminist groups, the different faction of the feminists, they're uniting against the common enemy at this. In this instance, it was the white privileged American who had been offered up as a sacrificial lamb. But then when they got rid of me, they turned on Kate Phillips and she was ousted, the white woman. So you see how like, see, Kate, you really, really poorly played your hand. And I mean, they all know I'm challenging what's going on in the courts, in the international courts. These are people in the IMF. They should understand this shit. They should be supporting me and instead of trying to shut me up. I mean, if anybody should be implementing the human rights conventions, it's people in the World Bank, the IMF, and the UN. But no. They're utilizing those agencies for party politicking. And the minorities have been using it and to infiltrate American labor markets and marriage markets. And they're all over the place in think tanks and nonprofits in Washington, and they need to be drained. That's why Trump won in the 2016 bid with a promise to drain the swamp. So, Raees, I hope you'll listen there and understand what the issue is. Starting to get a picture. I don't know. I've explained this so many freaking times to the people in Arizona, and I'm tired. I'm tired. I mean, Lucy, I've told her, I don't know how many times. She's a DeConcini. She was my older sister's best friend growing up. I mean, I keep on saying, my Lord, with friends like these, who needs enemies? I'm like, look at the Capote swans. In the case of Ann Woodward, she killed her husband, so it had to be, oh Lord, we have to prevent a scandal there. So her mother-in-law helped cover it up. They had been dining at Wallace Simpson's house with the abdicated king just before she shot her husband and killed him. But Catherine, because he was going to leave her, because she was a gold-digging whore who has many alcohol problems as her husband, and both of them were sleeping around. Poor kids, eventually they both committed suicide. But so that was covered up. It wasn't until Truman Capote outed her in the Cote Basque, and so she killed herself with a cyanide pill. Then on the other side, Katharine Graham, her husband was the head of the Washington Post. Now he was going to leave her, but she was such a tyrant that she had him commit suicide. She wasn't going to allow that. And oh, that woman must have just really done a number on her husband so that he would commit suicide. See, this is what the respectable people are about. I'm sorry, Erica Kirk, she's an aspiring Capote swan. What do you want? This is what Cornelia Guest was selling in the 80s, and everybody's been drinking and passing out the Kool-Aid ever since, including Cindy McCain and Meghan McCain. I keep on saying, Meghan McCain, don't worry about your obesity. Don't you worry about that. The damage that little girl did on The View, along with all of the others, I'm sitting here being shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, and they're putting a snot-nosed brat, the Arizona Republicans, on The View to create, I mean, they were as bad as the Five, of course. The media in this country has been a propaganding, producing bullshit artist for generations. going back to Babe Palin and her Jewish husband, Bill Palin, with CBS.
People get to get sued. If you bash somebody's head in against the curb in a drunken fight, you better believe that a jury can return a verdict of $20 million saying that was battery or assault.
Right.
You know, public policy favors giving victims
$20 million against who? I mean, this stuff, money. No, you bash somebody's head in on a sidewalk, you're going to go to prison. But no, he jumps, you're going to get $20 million. How are you going to get $20 million? Unless, you know, even like the parent sues the person who killed their child. Oh, because you have a lot of money. Well, no, you're going to have to show, is that person's life worth $20 million? Well, maybe he's like this great, you know, singer, and he would have earned that kind of money for the parent, and so he can reclaim the $20 million. But if it's just an average Joe, you're not going to get that, because then that would set a principle that any person at the border, these refugees fleeing, they get killed, each one is worth $20 million. Yeah, I don't think they're going to set that precedent. But see, immediately you're going to get $20 million. The greed out there. It's all consuming. Everybody immediately, money. Money makes the world go round, the world go round, the world go round, and we're back in cabaret.
Victims, making them whole. So in a defamation case, is no similar. It's a civil case. There is no insanity sort of plea. The question of, well, do you meet the mental state of recklessness or negligence is really an academic discussion. The jury is going to get to see. Look, let's say Candace says, let's say this is totally hypothetical, but let's say Candace and her lawsuit and her defense, I should say, is going really bad. And the defense says, you know what? We're just going to say that she was doing a bunch of drugs and she had a really bad Molly trip. And that inspired this narrative. Hypothetically, in that circumstance.
You're not going to get that on Candace. Oh my God. This guy really doesn't think before he opens his mouth. Like, you're not going to get on that on Candace, and even like insinuating that with the standards that you're trying to implement here, saying that online, Candace could turn around and sue you for defamation. Which, of course, you can say, I'm just talking about a hypothetical situation. I'm not insinuating that that would be a defense, a line of defense for Candace. Well, yeah, you are. I mean, are you kidding? If she was to claim that, CPS could come and take her kids. No, that would never be a scenario.
Saying she did this. I'm saying literally it's a hypothetical. So if Candace's lawyers are listening, you know, it's a hypothetical, guys.
Yeah, but I'm saying you're insinuating that would be a possible line of defense. Pick another card, buddy, because that was not a good one.
Current liability. And the answer is no. There's no precedence for that, at least. I'd love to see it. So yeah, there were some good questions that were being fielded while I was out. So I'm happy to answer any of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
definitely. Let me go back to
things. Is it's incredible that people don't have basic understanding. I mean, my knowledge when I started, researching, reading the Spanish Constitution, the Civil Code, the Penal Code, I really don't get much into the laws because I based it on that and the international conventions, because in the Spanish Constitution, it integrates the international conventions of which Spain is signatory. So I had that to use. So I really, that supersedes, the laws under their hierarchy of legal principles, as does in the United States. If something is anti-constitutional against the Constitution, well, then it has no legitimacy. So anyway, now I forgot my train of thought. I was explaining all of that. But yeah, this guy, he better tread lightly. This, you know, as I say, pick another card, because there's some other cards he could use.
To the top here and see if there was any. I think that one definitely came up in our own discussion with Gray Hughes. Now
I know. Excuse me. Yeah, my blood pressure keeps on going down today. Is that you know, it was just commercial law course, contracts, writ, torts. And this gets into educating our societies and having an educated society that has an understanding of the basic principles: contract, writs, torts, due process, presumption of innocence. If everybody was understanding those concepts, then a lot of this bitchery would go away. And we got to get rid of the mean girls. And Candace is one of those.
Those are non-relevant. I asked the class action suit.
By the way, something that's really, really important, and as you are scrolling through, some people might genuinely take offense to the fact that how does a YouTuber get hit with an $18 million jury verdict for just talking conspiracy or nonsense? And let me tell you some of the evidence that comes out at trial. Evidence at trial comes out that the father of this girl who died, a very tragic death, regardless of how you view whether she was drinking or not, that Daniel Rodney had to go into hiding because his phone number and address were made public by Upchurch. Could you imagine that? Because of the negative attention, he literally had to go into hiding, like he's on the witness protection program or something. The jury got to hear that, is my point, right? No. It's evidence. Significant.
Yeah, well, we have an underground network of women who are having to go into hiding for a long time and flee with their children in order to protect them, because family courts want to hand them over to their abusers. And, you know, everybody involved in family court reform will tell anybody, you know, it's mainly women, but it can be men. There are women abusers. Mitch Snow, that's the case with his ex-wife. That if you are going to take your children and run, you will be pursued by the law. FBI, Interpol, if you go international. And if they catch you, your children will be handed over to their abuser and you'll end up in prison. So think very carefully about this. The situation has to be really, really grave. I mean, life-threatening. Because the situations, you know, the sexual abuse of the Lori Handrahan case, and she was a professor at AU. Not only was her husband sexually abusing the child, her husband's lawyer, 2-year-old little girl. Oh, she was called, you know, crazy, all sorts of stuff. She played into their hands sometime. And I mean, you know, typical, I guess she just, oh, I'm a professor at AU and I have a diploma and she's above the protective mothers without diplomas. This is again with the experts. I'm like, you little ladies, you can become victims. We've seen with the Lori Handrahan case, how that goes down. Erin Eddy, she was DOD, husband DOD. That's the Arlington courts. Judge Newman, he and Judge Wiggins, she's a woman, notorious. Judge Wiggins had to retire. That was their solution. But notorious, everybody's known about that. They've been trafficking kids through those courts for decades. Judge Newman married to Sheila Johnson, the first black billionaire. Oh, look what they've done to Middleburg. Middleburg used to be a quaint town, colonial town. Done the same thing in Middleburg that everybody's done to Tucson. Everybody coming to this country. Yeah, it's no excuse that the Capote Swans, my mother, and all of her friends and everybody I know, my sister was saying, oh, this country's gone to shit. I'm like, yeah, under y'all's watch. I was gone for 20 years. Well, I've been back 18 and keep on saying, shut up, stupid, shut up, stupid, shut up, stupid. Yeah, well, I'm not shutting up. And while all of these people, try and, grapple the ladder of success and cash in on all of this, we've gone $40 trillion into public debt. That's what Trump doesn't want everybody to look at. The entire Trump administration, they know that they can only keep this up for so long. That's what the war was about as well. This is what the war against Iran is. Make more money for them. The balance, the balance sheet of siphoning off the money and power and control, concentrating more and more power and control into the hands of the oligarchs. The Republicans are doing as much as the Democrats. I don't know. I still have some hope in Bobby Kennedy, but I don't. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm tired of listening to these guys go over and over the same kind of bullshit. Just tired. I don't know what God's plan is, but I wish he'd get on with it.